I booked a lake house, stocked the fridge, and sent the group chat a full schedule for our annual family trip. When I arrived, the house was empty. 3 hours later, my mom posted a family weekend where I wasn't invited to. I said nothing. Then I decided to shut down everything. Locks, login, unlinked my credit card from their accounts, and transferred the family emergency fund into my name. Now they can contact each other for help. I, 32M, had been organizing our family's annual lake house trip for 6 years straight. Every summer, same drill. Find the perfect rental, coordinate everyone's schedules, stock the fridge with everyone's favorites, plan activities that would keep both the kids and adults happy. This year was no different, or so I thought. The reservation confirmation came through in April, a beautiful 3-bedroom place right on Lake Minnetonka with a private dock and everything. $2,000 for the weekend, charged to my credit card like always. I sent the group chat the details, arrival times, sleeping arrangements, meal plans, even a rough schedule of activities. Everyone responded with thumbs-up emojis and excitement. My mom said she couldn't wait to see everyone together again. My sister mentioned bringing her famous potato salad. My brother asked if he could invite his new girlfriend. I spent Thursday evening at 3 different grocery stores, making sure I had everyone's dietary preferences covered. Gluten-free bread for my sister, that expensive organic milk my mom insists tastes better, craft beer my brother likes, snacks for the kids. The car was packed to the ceiling by the time I finished loading everything. Friday afternoon, I left work early to make the 2-hour drive. Traffic was lighter than expected, so I arrived around 4 instead of 6. The house looked exactly like the photos, weathered cedar siding, wraparound deck, that classic up-north charm. I grabbed the first load of groceries and headed for the lockbox. The code didn't work. I tried it 3 more times, thinking maybe I'd written it down wrong. Nothing. I called the rental company, and after 20 minutes on hold, a woman told me the reservation had been canceled 2 days ago. Canceled and refunded. She couldn't tell me who had requested the cancellation, just that it came from the email address on file. My email address. I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes, staring at my phone. The group chat had been quiet since Tuesday, which I'd assumed meant everyone was just busy with work. Now it felt ominous. I scrolled back through our messages, looking for any hint of what might have happened. Nothing seemed off. I called my mom first. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Then my sister. Same thing. My brother picked up on the second ring, but when I started explaining about the lake house, he suddenly had to go and hung up. Something was definitely wrong. I drove to the nearest diner and ordered coffee, trying to figure out my next move. Maybe there had been some kind of emergency, and they tried to reach me but couldn't get through. Cell service up north could be spotty. Maybe someone was sick, or there'd been a work crisis, or any number of legitimate reasons why plans might change last minute. But why cancel without telling me? Why not answer their phones? At 7:30, my phone buzzed with a notification. Instagram. My mom had posted a photo. The picture showed my entire family gathered around a different lake house, one I didn't recognize. Everyone was there. Mom and Dad on the deck chairs, looking relaxed. My sister and her husband setting up what looked like a game of cornhole. My brother and his girlfriend by the water with drinks in their hands. Even my teenage nephew was visible in the background, already in swimming shorts. The caption read, "Perfect start to a family weekend. Nothing better than being surrounded by the people who matter most. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family time, hashtag lake house." I stared at the screen until the coffee in my cup went cold. They'd planned another trip. Without me. Not only had they excluded me, but someone had actively canceled the reservation I'd made and presumably booked this other place instead. Someone had access to my email, my accounts, my plans, and had used that access to cut me out entirely. The betrayal hit me in waves. First, the practical anger. I'd spent money, time, effort planning something they'd already decided to skip. Then the deeper hurt. My own family had conspired to exclude me from something I'd been organizing for years. Finally, a cold realization about how little they must think of me to believe they could get away with this. I drove home in silence, my phone buzzing occasionally with notifications I didn't check. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun had set, and my house felt emptier than usual. Saturday morning brought a flood of social media updates. My sister posted a video of the kids jumping off the dock. My brother shared a photo of the grill loaded with burgers and brats. My mom uploaded a selfie with my dad. both of them smiling widely with the lake stretched out behind them. Each post felt like another small knife twist. Not one of them had tried to contact me to explain. I spent the weekend in my basement, ostensibly organizing storage boxes, but really just trying to process what had happened. Sunday evening, my phone finally rang. My mom's name appeared on the screen. She sounded cheerful, almost aggressively so. She asked how my weekend had been, as if nothing unusual had happened. When I mentioned the lake house situation, she got quiet for a moment, then told me there had been a miscommunication. She said they'd assumed I'd gotten the message about the change of plans and just hadn't responded. She apologized for the confusion and suggested we all get together soon to clear the air. The gaslighting was almost impressive in its boldness. I told her we'd talk later and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through possible explanations, trying to find some version of events that didn't involve my family actively deceiving me. Maybe there really had been a miscommunication. Maybe someone else had accessed my email account. Maybe the rental company had made an error. But the more I thought about it, the clearer the picture became. Someone in my family had canceled my reservation and booked another place, specifically to exclude me. They'd planned it, executed it, and then tried to pretend it was all a misunderstanding when confronted. The next morning, I started making changes. I'd always been the family's unofficial financial coordinator. When my parents needed help with a large expense, they'd ask me to cover it temporarily from my savings. When my sister's husband lost his job last year, I'd helped with their mortgage payments for 3 months. When my brother wanted to propose but couldn't afford the ring he'd picked out, I'd quietly transferred money to his account with instructions to pay me back whenever he could. Over the years, I'd also become connected to various family accounts and services. My credit card was linked to my parents' Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Spotify accounts. I was an authorized user on my mom's Costco membership. I had backup access to my sister's cloud storage for family photos. My brother had my login information for our shared Disney Plus and HBO Max subscriptions. Most importantly, I was the primary account holder for our family emergency fund. We'd set it up 5 years ago after my dad's heart attack left them with unexpected medical bills. Everyone contributed monthly, but the account was in my name because I had the most stable credit and banking history. The balance had grown to just over $18,000. I started with the subscriptions. Netflix gone. Hulu canceled. Amazon Prime removed their access. Spotify, Disney Plus, HBO Max, all of it. I changed the passwords on every shared account and removed their devices from my services. Then I went to the bank. The emergency fund transfer took less than 20 minutes. I moved the entire balance into a new account, accessible only to me. Technically, it was already my money. The account had always been in my name, and I'd contributed more to it than anyone else in the family. But I knew they'd been counting on that safety net being available. Finally, I called Costco and removed myself from my mom's membership, which effectively canceled the automatic payments that had been coming from my credit card for the past 3 years. By Wednesday afternoon, my phone started ringing. My sister called first, asking why Netflix wasn't working. I told her she'd need to set up her own account and hung up. An hour later, my brother called about Disney Plus. Same response. Then my mom called, confused about why her Amazon orders were being declined. I explained that I was streamlining my financial commitments and would no longer be providing family access to my personal accounts. When she asked why, I reminded her about the lake house situation and suggested she talk to whoever had canceled my reservation about setting up replacement services. The calls kept coming. My sister was angry about losing access to our shared photo storage right before she'd planned to order prints for my nephew's birthday party. My brother wanted to know why Spotify had stopped working in his car. My dad called to ask if there was something wrong with the bank account because his automatic payment for mom's medication had been declined. Each time, I gave the same calm explanation. I was no longer providing financial or account access to family members. They would need to handle these things independently going forward. By Friday, the tone of the calls had shifted from confusion to accusation. My mom called me selfish and vindictive. She said I was punishing the whole family over a simple miscommunication about a vacation. She reminded me that family was supposed to stick together, especially during difficult times. My sister accused me of being petty and controlling. She said I was acting like a child who didn't get invited to a birthday party. She pointed out that they'd probably excluded me because I'd been difficult to deal with lately, though she couldn't specify how. My brother took a different approach, trying to appeal to my sense of responsibility. He reminded me about all the times the family had been there for me, conveniently forgetting that most of those instances had involved me helping them rather than the other way around. He said I was being unreasonable and needed to put things back the way they were. I listened to all of it without arguing. I didn't defend my actions or try to explain my perspective. I simply acknowledged what they'd said and repeated that they'd need to handle their own accounts and expenses going forward. Update 1. 3 weeks later, the real consequences started becoming clear. My dad had a minor fender bender and discovered their car insurance had lapsed because the automatic payment from the emergency fund account had been declined. They'd had to pay out of pocket for repairs and scramble to reinstate coverage. My sister's daughter needed an emergency dental procedure, and they couldn't access the family fund that had always been their backup for unexpected medical expenses. They'd had to put it on a credit card with a high interest rate. My brother's girlfriend had moved in with him, and they'd planned to use money from the emergency fund for a security deposit on a larger apartment. Without access to those funds, they were stuck in his studio place, which was causing relationship stress. Meanwhile, my parents had to start paying for their own streaming services, which seemed minor until they realized how much everything cost when you weren't sharing accounts. The monthly bill for all their entertainment subscriptions was over $60, which hadn't mattered when someone else was covering it. My mom called me crying, saying I was tearing the family apart over something stupid. She begged me to reconsider, promising that they'd include me in all future plans if I'd just put things back the way they were. I told her that wasn't the point anymore. The lake house incident had made it clear how the family really saw me, as a convenient resource to be used when needed and ignored otherwise. I said I was tired of being taken for granted and had decided to focus on my own financial priorities. She hung up on me. Update 2. 2 months after the lake house weekend, my sister reached out through text instead of calling. She said she'd been thinking about what happened and wanted to apologize for how they'd handled the vacation planning. She admitted they'd decided to book a different place because my brother's girlfriend had suggested somewhere closer to her family, and they'd thought it would be easier to just change everything rather than discuss it with me first. She said they'd canceled my reservation thinking they could explain later, but then things had gotten complicated and they'd decided to just go ahead with the new plan. She acknowledged it had been wrong to exclude me and said they all felt bad about how it had turned out. The apology felt genuine, but it also confirmed what I'd suspected. They hadn't excluded me because of any emergency or miscommunication. They'd simply decided they preferred a different plan and had found it easier to cut me out than include me in the decision-making process. I thanked her for the apology, but told her it didn't change my position on the financial arrangements. I said I hoped they could understand that trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. She asked if there was anything they could do to make things right. I told her they could start by taking full responsibility for their own expenses and stop expecting me to be their financial safety net. I said that maybe, eventually, we could work toward a more balanced family relationship, but it would have to be based on mutual respect rather than financial dependency. She said she understood and would talk to the others about giving me some space. Update 3. It's been 6 months now since the lake house incident. The family dynamics have settled into a new pattern, though it's not what any of us expected. My parents have become more financially independent by necessity. Dad picked up some part-time consulting work to help cover the streaming services and other expenses they'd grown used to having subsidized. Mom has gotten better at budgeting and planning for unexpected costs. My sister and her husband started their own emergency fund and have been more careful about their spending. They've also begun involving me in family planning conversations again, asking for my input rather than just assuming I'll go along with whatever they decide. My brother broke up with the girlfriend who triggered the whole lake house situation. He never directly connected it to what happened, but he mentioned that she'd made several comments about his family being too involved in each other's business and had pushed him to distance himself from us. The emergency fund money has stayed in my personal account. I've used some of it to pay off my remaining student loans and put the rest into investments. Nobody has asked me about it directly, though I know they're all aware it's no longer available to them. We had Thanksgiving dinner together for the first time since the incident. The atmosphere was different, more careful, more respectful of boundaries, but also somehow more genuine. Conversations felt more balanced, with everyone participating rather than just assuming I'd handle logistics and planning. I've started dating someone new, and when I told her this story, She said it sounded like I'd finally taught my family to see me as a person rather than a service. That perspective helped me understand what I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate. The lake house is available for rent again this summer. I saw the listing while browsing vacation rentals for a trip I'm planning with my girlfriend. For a moment, I considered booking it and sending my family a picture, but that felt petty in a way I've moved beyond. Instead, I'm planning a different kind of trip, one where I'm not responsible for everyone else's good time, where I'm not the default organizer and financier, where I can just be myself rather than the family problem solver. My phone still rings when someone needs help with something, but the requests are different now. They're actual requests rather than assumptions. They come with offers of reciprocation rather than expectations of automatic agreement. It's not the family dynamic I grew up with, but it's better, more honest, more sustainable. Sometimes the best way to bring people together is to stop holding everything together for them. The lake house weekend showed me that I'd been confusing being useful with being valued. Now I know the difference, and I won't settle for less than both.